Imran Khan is just one problem. An even bigger one is lurking around the corner. Pakistan could soon run out of cash. Ratings agency Moody's has sounded an alarm. They say Pakistan could soon default, meaning they won't have enough money to repay their loans. Listen to what Moody's is saying. Pakistan's financing options beyond June are highly uncertain. Without an IMF program, Pakistan could default given its very weak reserves. How weak? Pakistan has a $4.5 billion in reserves, just enough to cover 1 month of imports. So the IMF bailout is a make or break deal for Pakistan. If they get the money, they can delay the crisis. If not, they could default. What happens then? A default can send ripples across the economy. Around 147 countries have defaulted since the year 1960. All of them face the same challenges: higher interest, higher inflation, and higher unemployment. Though in Pakistan's case, I'm not so sure. Their inflation is already at 36.4%. It's higher than Sri Lanka, which also defaulted last year. So the IMF bailout is not an option anymore, it's a necessity. And what's the holdup? Well, Pakistan and IMF signed a bailout deal in 2019. They agreed to an amount of $6 billion. It was expanded to $7 billion in 2020. Some of that loan is supposed to be disbursed this year. Just one problem, though. Pakistan and the IMF cannot agree on loan terms. IMF officials visited Islamabad in January for a review meet. Pakistan said an agreement was reached, but the IMF rejected this. They've imposed another condition on Pakistan. The IMF wants assurances from friendly countries like China, Qatar, and the UAE. They want these countries to fill Pakistan's financing gap, but nobody is agreeing to. And this has left Pakistan high and dry. The question is, what options do they have now? One is to turn around the economy in 1 month, which is highly unlikely, so let's ignore that. The second option is to fulfill the IMF's conditions, plead with Qatar or Saudi Arabia and get the assurances. The third option is to look elsewhere. And some reports say China could bail Pakistan out. Mathematically, it does make sense. Pakistan's total external debt is $126 billion. Out of this, $30 billion is held by China alone. It is by far the biggest lender to Pakistan, even more than the World Bank and the Asia Development Bank put together. So China coming to the rescue of Pakistan is a real possibility, but at what cost? We're not talking about a normal loan here. We're talking about a fire sale, a bailout. China is not running some charity organization. It's likely to extract major concessions from Pakistan. But even that is short term. It doesn't address the root cause of Pakistan's problem, a broken system. The civilian leadership is toothless. The military leadership is obsessed with India, and the opposition is on the streets. So who's working on nation building? Turns out, no one. Pakistan is a nuclear-armed country on autopilot, that too without a radar.
सारे शीशे तोड़े हैं, सब पे हमला किया है।
अपनी हकीकी आजादी के लिए सबको निकलना पड़ेगा।
It's finally happened. Imran Khan has officially been arrested. Frankly, it was just a matter of time. He has more than 100 cases against him across Pakistan. Some are linked to terrorism, some are linked to corruption. But so far, Imran Khan had escaped arrest. He was always saved by last-minute bails or his supporters. Today, it seems his luck ran out. Imran Khan was at the Islamabad High Court today. He had 2 separate hearings. Once he was inside the compound, the gates were blocked. Armed paratroopers arrested and whisked him away. Take a look at this. So which one of these 100+ cases got to him? Reports say the Al-Qadir Trust case. Imran Khan and his wife are accused of misappropriating funds. How much money? Around $230 million. They're also accused of grabbing land meant for the Al-Qadir University. You get the basic idea. Of course, with Imran Khan, there is extra drama. His party leaders claim he's being tortured by authorities. Listen to this.
Imran Khan, हमारी रेड लाइन है. इमरान खान इस मुल्क का पूरे आलम इस्लाम का निडर वाहिद ईमानदार लीडर है और उसने कोई गुनाह नहीं किया. उसने कोई लाखों करोड़ों अरबों रुपए लोगों के नहीं लूटे. वो कोई दौड़ के नहीं गया किसी दूसरे मुल्क में जाके बैठ गया. मैं पूरी कौम से, सब कारकुनों से और सब अवाम से, सिर्फ कारकुन नहीं अवाम से ये डिमांड करता हूं कि आज बाहर निकलें. अगर आज हम बाहर ना निकले, ये मुल्क हमेशा के लिए इन चोरों डाकुओं के हवाले कर दिया जाएगा और दोबारा यहाँ पे कुछ सर उठा के नहीं जी सके.
इस वक्त खान साहब के ऊपर बहुत ज्यादा तशद्दुद कर रहे हैं, खान साहब को मार रहे हैं और आई डोंट नो कि इन्होंने खान साहब के साथ क्या कर दिया है.
Like I said, dramatic. The PTI has also released this video on social media. The man you see is supposed to be Imran Khan's lawyer. The claim is he was beaten up. But Islamabad police have rejected this claim. They've also imposed a curfew in the capital. And that's the big worry now. Imran Khan has millions of fanatic supporters. They've already started protesting. In Lahore, Imran Khan's supporters burnt tires in protest. They also ripped out government hoardings. In Karachi, key roads were blocked. If there's a showdown on the streets, things could get ugly. We saw a sample of that in the month of March. More than 10,000 police officers descended on Lahore. Their mission, to arrest Imran Khan from his Zaman Park residence. But in the end, they had to pull back because Imran Khan's supporters flooded the streets. If that was a trailer, this could be the full picture. But what explains the timing? Imran Khan could have been arrested any time in the last 1 year, so why is he being arrested now? Perhaps because of what he said over the weekend. Imran Khan accused Pakistan's military of trying to assassinate him. You may remember the attack in November last year. Imran Khan was shot in the leg. He now says that the ISI, or the Inter-Service Intelligence, plotted that attack. Now, in Pakistan, that's a line you do not cross. And if you do, you pay the price for it. The army, of course, has rejected these claims. They also threatened to take Imran Khan to court. That won't be necessary now, I guess. To Imran Khan's credit, he knew what was coming. Before heading to court, he recorded a video message. Take a look at this.
जब तक ये मेरे अल्फाज आप तक पहुंचेंगे, मुझे एक नाजायज केस के अंदर बंद कर दिया होगा. इससे एक चीज आप सबको वाज़ेह हो जानी चाहिए कि पाकिस्तान में जो फंडामेंटल राइट्स हैं, जो हमारे आइन हमें हुकूक देता है, जो जमहूरियत है, वो दफन हो चुकी है. मैं आज आप सबसे अपील कर रहा हूं कि आपको अपने हुकूक के लिए, अपनी हकीकी आजादी के लिए सबको निकलना पड़ेगा.
So Imran Khan's plan is clear. He wants people to hit the streets, to put pressure on the government. Reminds us of Shehbaz Sharif. What's the Prime Minister up to? Shortly after the arrest, he wrote this long message on Twitter. He accused Imran Khan of maligning the army. I guess his loyalty is clear. And this goes beyond just the arrest. Imran Khan has been calling for early elections. The dates aren't out yet, but the parliament dissolves in mid-August. So legally speaking, elections must be held in Pakistan in the next few months. But this is Pakistan, so who knows? Many people have said that arresting Imran Khan would be counterproductive. It would make him a martyr, a people's champion persecuted by the deep state. It's a fair assessment, but we keep forgetting one thing. A sympathy wave matters only in a free and fair election. Maybe the army doesn't want one. If the polls are rigged, who cares what the people think? Also, let's not forget how Imran Khan came to power in the first place. He wasn't remotely popular then. He was selected for this job by the army. The same army later toppled him and installed a new government. That's Pakistani politics for you. You live by the sword, you also die by it. Imran Khan may call himself Pakistan's messiah, but no amount of PR can erase his past. As for his future, the next few days will be crucial. If Imran Khan supporters go on a rampage, we could be looking at a major crisis. Who knows? Maybe even tanks on the streets. Either way, This experience is a lesson for all civilian leaders in Pakistan because Imran Khan violated the unwritten rule of Pakistani politics. He was ousted as Prime Minister, but he refused to move on. What's more, he plotted a comeback. That's usually the sort of stuff that gets you killed in Pakistan. You could say Imran Khan's been lucky so far. He's only been arrested. From evacuations, we turn to expulsions. There's a major diplomatic crisis unfolding between China and Canada. It's been brewing for a while, but now the gloves are off. Canada fired the first shot on Monday. They expelled a Chinese diplomat based in Toronto. This man, Zhao Wei. 24 hours later, China responded. They've decided to expel a Canadian diplomat in Shanghai. She's been asked to leave China by the 13th of May. But what exactly led to this spiraling crisis? To answer that question, we must go back to the year 2021. That's when Canada's intelligence agencies prepared a report on Chinese influence in Canada. This report talked about one leader in particular, Michael Chong, an opposition MP. He belongs to the Conservative Party. He was apparently targeted by China. Why? Because Chong criticized China's Uyghur crackdown. He also sponsored a motion declaring it a genocide. And what did Beijing do? They put Zhao Wei on the job, the same diplomat who was expelled on Monday. Zhao was tasked with finding information about this lawmaker's family in China. You can guess why. To intimidate them, to make an example out of Michael Chong, sort of like a gang war tactic. Now, this report was prepared in 2021, but last week, Canadian media accessed it. They asked why no action had been taken, why Justin Trudeau's government did not confront China. The government came under pressure, which brings us to present day. Trudeau has finally escalated the matter. He expelled the Chinese diplomat. Beijing responded in kind. Plus, they're threatening Canada with consequences.
China is unwavering in its determination to safeguard its own interests. We urge the Canadian side to immediately stop unreasonable provocations. If Canada does not listen to the advice and acts recklessly, China will fight back resolutely and forcefully, and the Canadian side must bear all the consequences arising from this.
Now, this is not some isolated controversy. It's part of a larger game, a game to influence Canada's elections. I'm not saying this. Justin Trudeau is. He has admitted that China tried to meddle in Canada's elections, once in 2019, then again in 2021. So what exactly is Beijing's strategy here? The answer lies with Michael Chong. Why do you think China targeted him? The Uyghur motion was one reason, but he wasn't the only MP who supported it. There were others too. Yet China chose to target him. Why? Because Michael Chong has Chinese ancestry. He probably has family in China. And that makes him a prime candidate for China's mind games. Credit to him, he hasn't wavered. You see, Canada is home to a large Chinese origin community, around 1.8 million people. They make up around 5% of Canada's population. And China is hoping to weaponize that, to turn those people against Canada. Again, I'm not the one saying this. Chinese Canadian leaders are. Listen in to the chair of the Toronto Association for Democracy in China.
You get a phone call, not only just in the middle of the night, but you get a phone call in the middle of the day asking, so how are your parents doing back in Sichuan, China? And then you get the message. That means if you don't behave, your parents' phone numbers, address, or even their physical well-being is under threat. So in that sense, it's a very subtle threat, and they've used this on many, many Chinese Canadians. I'm sure they have done this to Mr. Totti as well.
So that's the strategy. First, target people of Chinese ancestry, then intimidate them by threatening their family back home in China. And it's not a new strategy. It's the same one that China used in Australia. 5 years ago, similar reports emerged in Australia. Reports that said that China was meddling in their elections. How did Australia respond? With tougher laws. They banned foreign donations to political parties. They also enacted a new registry of foreign agents. Demography was a factor here too. Australia, you see, is home to 1.4 million people of Chinese heritage. They make up about 5.5% of Australia's population. Like in Canada, Beijing tried to weaponize it through intimidation and through so-called cultural outreach groups. Back then, Australia had the appetite to take China on. The question is, does Justin Trudeau have it? He says foreign interference will not be tolerated, yet his government did not do anything for 2 years. They did tolerate it for 2 years. The intelligence reports were prepared in 2021, but Trudeau acted only in 2023, only when they became a subject of public debate. So the obvious question is, what was he doing until now? And I understand that the scale of China's interference may be negligible. Its impact may be virtually nil, but this is about principle. Interfering in elections is a direct violation of sovereignty. It's no different from border incursions. So what should Prime Minister Trudeau be doing now? He's already ordered an inquiry. That should shed more light on these allegations. In the meantime, let me tell you what Trudeau should not be doing. China is making the mistake of questioning the loyalty of people living abroad. Chinese Canadians are loyal to Canada, not to China. Same with Chinese Australians. Trudeau must not forget this, because his crackdown on Chinese meddling could easily turn racist. It could alienate the Chinese community in Canada. And that's what Beijing is banking on. That's what Canada should guard against. Meanwhile, back in China, a new crackdown is underway, an anti-spy crackdown. The victims are consultancy firms, foreign consultancy firms. The latest one is Capvision Partners. It's headquartered in Shanghai. Its offices across China are being raided. Last month, it was US giant Bain & Company. The month before, it was America's Mintz Group. But why are these firms being targeted? Because China says they violated national security, and so the state is coming down hard, both on the companies and the people working with them. Reports say things will get worse in the next 2 months. That's when China's updated anti-espionage law will come into force. Here's a report.
After years of pandemic-induced lockdowns, China says it's open for business. Well, except if you're a consultancy firm, apparently. In that case, China might be shutting you down. Beijing is in a battle with consultancies. The government is conducting raids on their offices in China. So far, 3 such raids have been made public. The most recent is the raid on Capvision Partners. It's a consulting firm based out of Shanghai with offices across China. It was set up in 2006 by former Bain consultants and Morgan Stanley investment bankers. Capvision offers consultancy services to foreign companies with business in China. Its website says it worked with almost 500,000 experts. And that seems to have been its downfall. Chinese media accused Capvision of paying employees of Chinese state-owned companies to leak secrets. A Chinese state employee has also reportedly been jailed for 6 years. This is for revealing confidential information to Capvision. And the raid seemed to have spooked the firm. Capvision released a statement on the messaging platform WeChat. It said it would resolutely fulfill national security responsibility and take the lead in regulating the consulting industry. It sounds like there are more raids on the way. And more consultancies will face Beijing's wrath. The Capvision raid was already the 3rd one this year that we know of. The first victim was the US-based Mintz Group. The company provides a range of services, like corporate due diligence checks, corruption investigations, background checks and asset tracing. The group's Beijing office was raided on the 20th of March. The office was shut down and 5 of its Chinese employees were detained. Reports say its workers were held outside Beijing and were uncontactable. The Mintz Group also says it did not receive any legal notice regarding the case. Then, last month, Bain & Company came under fire. 5 employees from Bain's Shanghai office were questioned by the police. China, of course, tried to downplay the crackdown.
What I want to tell everyone is that China's national security agencies and relevant departments have recently carried out open law enforcement actions against the relevant company in accordance with the law. This aims to promote healthy development of the industry and safeguard national security and development interests.
He says it's done in accordance with the law. That doesn't really inspire confidence when the law is easy to misuse. Take, for example, China's updated espionage law. It's due to come into force on the 1st of July. The law expands the search and seizure powers of Chinese authorities. It allows the implementation of entry and exit bans on individuals. We spoke about Chinese exit bans last week. This is another law that enables them. And the law also expands China's reach. Now, instead of investigating just state secrets, the police can look at any documents, data, materials, or items related to national security. And what does national security mean here? That's up to Chinese authorities to decide. So basically, Beijing can crack down on anyone it wants to. All of this comes amid China's attempts to bring international businesses back after the years of lockdown. You'd think China would want to present a welcoming climate for commerce. Instead, it's reminding companies that they will have to toe Beijing's line, no matter how unreasonable. It begs the question, how long before companies decide they've had enough of China's draconian antics?
And finally, it's time for Vantage Shots, images that tell the story. Starting with the Democratic Republic of Congo, the country is dealing with the aftermath of devastating floods. More than 400 people have been killed. Search and rescue operations are still on. Meanwhile, NASA has launched 2 satellites to monitor cyclones. And finally, swimmers from around the world participated in a swimming competition in Bolivia. They endured cold temperatures and high altitude. Also, what makes the 9th of May significant? Taking you back in history, we told you that Russia marked the Victory Day today. The day commemorates the Soviet Union's victory over Nazi Germany. It's a day of celebration for Russians. But interestingly, it wasn't always the case. The Soviet population apparently believed that there was little to celebrate. Victory had been achieved, but it came at a huge cost. In Europe, it was a day of mourning and introspection. The day slowly became about gusto and flair with each passing year, and Putin took the celebrations to new heights. We're leaving you with these visuals. Thank you for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.
D'accord, analyse. L'équipe est nulle.
3, 2, 1.
Email exchanges from inside the BBC, they talk about the risk of violating Indian laws. It's easier to rake up the freedom of speech debate, but does it give anyone a free pass to knowingly violate the law? America supports India because it needs India's support in return. And India is working with the US because it suits India's interests. This is how geopolitics works. Last night, he diffused a crisis with his defense minister. But today, Netanyahu was confronted with a new problem. His cabinet seems to have rebelled against him. The UK is looking at the Indian subcontinent to fill its coffers. That India seems to be negotiating from a position of power, like a partner, and not a former colony. The US and Russia are dangerously close to an armed conflict. This year, 2023, New Delhi will be the capital of global diplomacy. For a country as diverse as ours, with 88% of the population illiterate, it was a very big deal to write a constitution, and that too, the world's largest. Meanwhile, if we may, here's a Republic Day gift from India for the BBC. A list of suggestions for the BBC for their upcoming documentaries. Number 1, the Kohinoor and the colonial loot. Number 2, an outdated monarchy and unhealthy obsession with the royals. Number 3, racism in 2023. We're waiting.